Hello, Macbigicekeys here, and this is a follow-up to my video about Traversal, a game I decided to develop in C++. If you're interested on how I got to this point in coding, you could watch the previous video, but this video is just about what I've done since then. And I have zero coding experience as of like a month and a half ago. So, I'm an absolute noob, and this is not instructional in any manner whatsoever. So let's get to the updates. So the first update that I did was I added movement because when my wife sat down to beta test, I made her beta test multiple times. She would immediately go to the mouse instead of using the number pad. And so I figured out, I guess I would have to figure that out, right? And you can see some of the code on the screen. I put this if statement into my main. And again, it was fairly simple. The hardest part of understanding the code for me is the appropriate syntax to do it. So I put a bunch of comments in here on what these things are doing. But the hardest part about including the mouse movement was making the program understand where I was clicking in relation to the screen space and the map space, because the actual map space of the game, let me run it real quick here. The actual map space of the game is different than the screen space of the game. So, I could be clicking over here in the far right corner of the screen, but how does the program interpret that? So that took a minute to figure out, but mouse movement now works. And if I click far away, like over here, nothing happens, right? Even if I click in the black, nothing happens. So I have to click right there, and that's going to draw me back to base. So that was the first big improvement that I made, and I was super stoked that I was able to get that running. The second thing that I added, and it's just weird. This is like a devlog, and I'm a gamer. I'm a lifetime gamer, not a game creator or code or anything. So it's just weird doing this. But the next thing that I did, and I said I wanted to try this in the end of the last video, was I decided to do a sprite sheet so that when the program is calling, for example, these foreboding towers, right? When the program is calling for a certain tile to be placed, that instead of just giving me a color like this gray color 169, 169, 169, it's actually going to call an image from a sprite sheet. So this is an interesting process to learn. I had understood some of this from I don't even know when, just ages ago, and maybe some learning along the way passively, that the old games, you know what it was? It was back in Minecraft version, I don't know, it was like 11 or something like that. I decided I was going to make my own texture pack. And I think when I did that texture pack, all the textures at that time, I don't know if they do it differently now, all the textures at that time were on one page. And you had to make sure that if you added or changed the texture, that it fit within the area that the original image was in. So let me show you an example of what I'm talking about here. So now we're in Krita, which is a great free software for drawing. It's right up there with GIMP and Inkscape. So what you have to do is, here are all the tiles. Here are the 20 so tiles that I had to create in order to get the program to render these images instead of just colors. And if I zoom in, you can see that they're pretty basic tiles. And I pulled these from random free pictures and open source stuff that I found online. Some of them I edited pretty heavily. Some of them I did not. Okay. And this isn't even the current one, because I can see that there are some changes that I've already made in the game. But anyway, so all the images for the game are on this sprite sheet. And if we zoom in really close, you can see it on a pixelated level. And the way that you call it in the program is and it's hard to see, but you see my little cursor up here in the top left, you need to identify the top left pixel of the image on the sprite sheet, and then you tell the program that it's going to be 64 and 64 in order to get the whole rectangle, and that's how it recognizes. So really, you only need to know what this is. But of course, it doesn't look this clean when you're making a sprite sheet. You have other layers and notations and all that, but this is the file that the program reads. So for my mud texture right here, if you look in the very top left, this occurs in X32, Y 539, X being the horizontal and Y being the vertical. So all I have to do for the mud tile is type in 32, 539, 64, 64, and then the program, and let's see if that's true. So where's the mud tile? Mucky mudslide, thick mud. That may not be the right one that I'm looking at. Oh, I'm looking at color over here on the left, but we should be looking over here. So mucky mudslide right here. Here's that number, 32, 539, and that tells us that top left pixel. And then 64, 64 is the size of the sprite that I'm using for this texture. And so that's a very old way of doing it, but that's something I was vaguely familiar with from something along the way, knowing about how games work. And so to me, that made sense to try to work within this structure that I had already started with by using a CSV file and coding the maps based on numbers and then pulling from those numbers certain values. So here you can see this is the second level, and so you can see some of those tiles in place. And so that was a huge achievement just by itself. I was super stoked. It's like, it's no longer just colored squares. I actually have textures in the game. And so the next thing was, can I animate these tiles? Can I make them move and turn and animate them in any way? I'm talking basic animation. And so here we're back in the code, and you can kind of see some references to like elapsed time. Of course, we had to have a clock, so I had to figure out how to put a clock that was fairly simple. And then there are things like tile animation, rotation, and size. So just by visualizing, very similar to like what we were just looking at here, right? So if I zoom really far out, those tiles look small. And if I zoom in, they look big. It's just like foreshortening, right? So this was my concept, was that, well, I would start with the sprite being rendered at size 0, 0, and then it would move forward up from wherever it's supposed to appear. It will move forward to a size greater than 64, 64. So I think I put in I played around with different numbers like 70 or 75. And then it would settle back down into its normal 64 by 64 size, thus creating the effect that it's coming forward and then falling in place. And that worked totally fine. The other cool thing is that you're going to see elapsed time in here, right? So I figured I wanted the entire animation to occur over 1 second, and so I split it up. And these F's just mean that these are potential decimals. That's all an F means. It's called a float. But essentially, that's what it means. That's as much as I can understand it, right? So for the elapsed time, I just broke it up. Over the first 0.8 seconds, the tile rises and spins. And then for the last 0.2 seconds, it stops spinning and reduces back down to the size that it's supposed to be in the game, thus creating the animation of the tiles. And I first did this with just the colored tiles, and then I had to make sure that it worked with the sprites as well. And that if the sprites fail, like if there isn't a sprite called up here in my tile info map struct that I made, if, for example, I don't have a number over here, or if it's a bad call and it looks at that PNG file and there's nothing there, then it defaults to whatever the color is. In this case, it would be yellow. Okay, and the colors don't make much sense visually when you're looking at it trying to play the game. So, all that being said, if we go back to the game here, as I move to the left, you're going to see the tiles animate. And it doesn't look amazing, but to me, it was a huge victory. It's like, I've animated something in the game. It is a video game now because things are moving. And so that was a big deal for me. And this is the first real level after the tutorial. This one you can see has 346 scoutable sectors, whereas the first tutorial only has, I think, 90. So I guess I'll talk about that. I added this calculation where the program can recognize, and I had to create a different kind of structure that saved the game. I called it a game state structure or something like that. Another interesting thing about coding is all these names that you give things are just names that you make up. Like get some tile count or a G state or a P state G or whatever. You have to remember what these are, or you have to give it logical names and put in a lot of these green comments so that you don't forget what the heck was going on. So going back to the scoutable sectors, now you can see this is like map completion. So you can see I've got 68 out of 346 tiles. And then there's an exit portal on a map too. Let me see if I can go to one of my other game saves. 2, no, 3. That's a different level. This one's that's that same level. It's almost all right. So you can see here, this is the finished tutorial map where 91 out of 91 scouted sectors are done, and we've got all of our traversal points up to 10. So we've explored everything, and you can't leave the map until you've explored everything. And then to the left of the character is this little portal. And if you click on it and you have not scouted all the tiles, it won't let you. And then you can proceed if you want to. And it has this prompt that says back to base camp, the skywall transports you. And I still have this issue. You can see like these walls appeared down below, and I don't know why they're appearing out of the range. So you start out with all black, and then you need to pick a direction to move. And once you pick a direction, then the other tiles appear. So that was, and you can see in this one, we only have out of 195, I think this is the third level, you only have 195 tiles that you can explore. And currently, oh, this must be the second level. And currently we only have 10 traversal points. Okay, so you travel carefully, and all the sprites should make sense. Like it's easier to walk on stone gravel than it is to walk through bushes. And so the bushes take away more points and exhaust you. You return to base camp. It's easy to walk in stones. It's harder to walk through ruins, so it expends more traversal points. But eventually you earn more points, and it won't be as hard to walk through those areas. Another thing that I added, so that's the Scoutable Sectors add-on. Another little thing that I added was the rest tile, and you can see that right here. It's just this little bit of code. And this basically, everything is like an if-then statement. I'm realizing as I study more code, it's all like you have this thing, you identify what this thing is, and then you make statements about it. Like if something else interacts with it, then something else happens. Or if it interacts with something else, then something else happens. Or after a certain amount of time, something else happens. So all this says right here is if the tile type that the player, this is in the player class, where I've just kind of dumped everything relating to player movement. So here, this is all about movement costs and restricting movement when they're in the memory prompt screens and all that. But basically, and then we have the E tile right here. I was just talking about the exit tile. So the R tile, when they step on the R tile, their traversal, their overall traversal, that yellow score that they have at the top, will return to the p-value. And the p-value is basically the denominator, and the traversal is the numerator of that score. So if you're at 2 out of 10 and then you step on an R tile, then you'll go back to 10 out of 10. And then this one says that this is what I was talking about with the E tile, that you must have explored all of the map before utilizing the E tile and going on to the next level. So these are some of the messages that pop up when the player sees that. So what that translates to in the game is the one that I'm mousing over right now, that I'm stepping on right now. And I haven't done anything with the actual player icon. It's just this black dot. But when you step on an R tile, your traversal points reset. So over here, you can say I'm 9 out of 16, but when I step on this, I'm 16 out of 16. And that allows the player to do a little bit more exploration without feeling frustrated that, like right here, you're like, man, to say some of this was black, you're like, how am I supposed to move forward? And in terms of game design, I don't want to constantly up the total because like I only have 20 tiles developed for the game, and each tile takes the same number of points away from the p-value, the 16. So I do have tiles that take, like water tiles took 15. Like that one step took 15 points away because it's hard to wade through water if you've done that before, right? And then this pine forest texture, which kind of looks like grass to me, I need to change it, takes you down to 3. So that's a 13 cost because walking through the woods is harder than walking through the grass. And so this allows the player to explore a little bit more. At the same time, I don't want to constantly, like I said before, I don't want to constantly up the total p-value, the numerator here, 16. I don't want that to go to like 50 immediately, because I think that just creates too much dimension in the game. I need to keep things simple. So I should be able to get over here and see I'm at 5 out of 16. This here is the memory tile, and I've already triggered it, so nothing will happen. But when you trigger a memory tile, that's when your p-value permanently increases and it resets. But it only resets the first time that you step on it. So that's the rest tile, and that's something that I've added since since the first video. And let me just restart the game here. Oh, I also made a text. So this traversal text, a game by, and all this text that you're seeing is just a text that I made. I wanted to make like a pixel text. So this is a very simple pixel text. I just decided to throw it in my game. I know it's kind of hard to read, but c'est la vie. And then the game menu looks like that. So the next thing that I want to talk about is it's relating to animation. So I'm back at the tutorial level. I only have 4 movements, so I'm not going to be moving around a lot here. But you notice as I moved, the grass tile appeared, and then the adjacent wall tiles appeared. So that seems really simple, but that was kind of hard to figure out. So I had to basically write in the program that anytime a tile is rendered that is adjacent to a wall tile, then that wall tile must also be rendered. And there was a bunch of weird things with it animating weird or not animating or everything not animated. So there was a lot of back and forth with that. But I think that adds to the whole scouting sectors thing, because you want to know if there's a wall here. If I move here, now I know there's a wall there. That gives me more information of what I have to explore. Whereas before, if I had moved here, then these wall tiles would not have appeared. And so this gives me information that, well, water is tough, grass is tough, but it's a little bit easier. Maybe there's something up here or here that I need to get to. So I can go back here and I can sneak on this walkway, this stone pathway, and get some more information. Be like, okay, well, I have 2 movements left. Dirt, I don't know how much dirt is going to cost me. I moved to dirt. Well, it cost me 3. So I returned to base camp, but it revealed that memory tile. So now I can figure out, well, maybe if I go this way, I can get to it, but I can't. And so at that point, I make the deduction that I can't get to that memory tile. I need to figure out a different way. So maybe I'll go downward. And so I'll take an easy path downward and things reveal. Oh, look, here's a memory tile. So I can show the memory function. You step on it, you get this prompt. It tells you how the memory tile works. You'll notice your points have gone up to 6 out of 6 now, just that first time, but 6, the total 6 stays. And then you finish this sentence. You remember the tranquility of all the, the pebbles. And then when you hit F2, you can see the completion of that thought, you remember the tranquility of all the pebbles near the rocky path. So it takes the description of one of these adjacent tiles, and then it tells you what your permanent increase was from 4 to 6 with an extra 2. This is kind of a hokey thing that I added to the game, but I like the sensibility of it, that your memories make you more able to explore further and all that sort of stuff. And last, I just thought I would add this. Just again, these videos are mostly for me. I don't know that really. Although the last video got like 160 views, that's awesome that people were interested in it. But this is really just for me to kind of look back as an even older man and remember all the things that I've attempted to do. So how I write my levels is on a piece of graph paper, and I just wherever I am, it's just a nice little way to get out of my brain a little bit and to zen out. And so here's the level that I was working at. I don't know that I have this in the game yet, but it's just all numbers. It's just simple movement. Like that's the whole game. Explore the whole map, get to all the memory tiles, and move on to the next one. It's just supposed to be a kind of a casual maze sort of puzzler game. So this is how I develop it, and then I throw these into a CSV, and then the rest you kind of saw in the video so far. And the very, very last thing I want to say is I have added this game to itch.io, and I put a link at the bottom of the description of the first video. I'll probably do it here as well. So if you want to try out the tutorial, it's just the base prototype of the game with the tutorial. Feel free to give it a try. It's the one issue that I haven't figured out, and maybe one of you experts that just happened to see this video, maybe you can help me, is when I go to download it on my other computers from itch.io, of course, Windows sees it as a virus because it's a zipped exe file, and I don't know how to make it not be seen that way. It's just this very innocent code right here, but it might seem, I don't know if the code seems fishy because I'm a noob and I don't know what I'm doing in terms of code, but it's all innocent code, right? And I know this code looks like a mess because it's all in one stream and not broken into separate files, into what's the word? Separate class files. And I tried that, but I couldn't get all the headers to agree, and it was a nightmare. So I figured while I was developing the game that I would just keep it all in one. But yeah, if anyone knows how to make my game not seem like it's some sort of virus or something to itch.io, that would be cool. So that's it. Comment if you like if you do. Thanks for watching.